Welcome to In Focus. I'm Mike Kohlmeyer. This week we're sitting down with lawmakers at the state, local, and federal level to learn more about some of the legislation they're passionate about. Joining us now, U.S. Congressman Representative Mike Carey. Welcome back, Mike, to the In Focus show. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you again.
Let's talk about something you're heavily involved in, the Credit for Caring Act. You're going to try this again. Family caregivers, a $5,000 tax credit. Why is this so important?
Well, listen, I think anybody who's ever been in this situation understands the need for funds. And right now, there's no current mechanism to give people credit for the time that they're taking off to help provide for their loved ones. And it is a financial burden. You know, I have a mother who's, had to do that before. Luckily, she was in a place that she could afford it, but there are so many people that just can't. And so Linda Sanchez, who sits on the Ways and Means Committee with me, a Democrat, she came to me and said, would you like to reintroduce it again this year? And I said, absolutely. And I think the nice thing about this bill, it is a bipartisan and bicameral piece of legislation. So currently, Shelley Moore Capito is doing it from the Republican side in the Senate, along with Senator Bennett, who's out of Colorado, who actually, believe it or not, actually spent some time in German Village. He worked for Celeste back in the day. So it is a bipartisan, bicameral piece of legislation. I think right now we have 30 Republicans that have signed on as co-sponsors and 30 Democrats as co-sponsors. And so as we get back to Washington, whether we're going to be operating and hopefully we go through and we can get rid of the CR and go into a regular appropriations process. But as we look at maybe doing another reconciliation package, this could be something that I would like to see that could move on to a reconciliation package, saying that it meets the Byrd rule, of course, in the Senate. But again, when you have a bipartisan, bicameral piece of legislation like this that is good for everybody, because everybody in their life will either be somebody that is a caregiver or will be actually somebody who's being cared for, or will be cared for. And so I think, this is something that transcends all socioeconomical differences within the country. And I think it's something that I think a lot of people can get behind.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Who qualifies? That's always your first question on this. It looked like the income level was pretty low, so it's almost like almost anybody can qualify. Also, this term, administrative complexity. You've heard that before. Doctor's notes, documents. How hard is it to say, I qualify for this?
Well, I think what we have to do first is, at least we have the foundation of the legislation. I'm sure that once we go through the hearing process, there will be amendments that are made. I had the opportunity to talk to several groups. The AARP is 100% behind this bill as in its current form. But I'm sure as we go through the process and we bring in people to testify and talk about things that need to be tweaked here or there, I'm sure we'll have some changes that'll be with the legislation. But this is a really good starting point. And it's bipartisan. So I'm sure that there'll be some changes along the way, but I think this is a good first start.
And not a place to stop. I mean, what more can we do on the federal level for our caregivers?
Well, so here's something else, and I think you saw us do this in the reconciliation plan as related to the child tax credit. What we were able to do with that was we were able to raise it to $2,200 per child, but what we were able to do was also tie that to inflation. And so one of the things that, as I was going around the district and meeting with different groups, whether it was the Alzheimer's Association here in Central Ohio, and all of Ohio actually, or the AARP, one of the things that really came up into that was why couldn't we tie it to inflation just like we did the child tax credit? And I think that's a great idea. And I think those are some of the ideas as we've gone out into the districts and we met with our constituents. I'm sure that Linda's going to come back, and I'm sure Shelley will come back out of West Virginia and Bennett out of Colorado. And I'm sure we're going to come back and say, hey, this is a great bill, but this was brought up to me when we were doing our in-district work period. So again, I think this will be a great first step. And I'm sure there'll be some changes along the way. And I do like the idea of tying it to inflation, just like we did the child tax credit.
What inspired you on this? Were people from your district or stories that you've heard out there?
Absolutely. And if you read anything about Rosalind Carter, Jimmy Carter's wife, she was very big into caregiving, and she wrote about it quite a bit. Had the opportunity to go down to his presidential library a couple of years ago, and there was something that really hit home. And I've known so many people over the course of my life that have either been provided for or they're actually caregivers themselves. And when you talk to people with less means, boy, $5,000 may not seem like a whole lot of money, but it really is, because on average, I believe a caregiver has to spend almost $7,800 out of pocket. And that's whether that's travel back and forth from work or taking time off work or providing for the medicines that their loved one needs, because people want their family members, their loved ones to be able to stay in their homes. And I think this really goes a long way to making that happen.
Should be something that will be exciting to follow and see if it goes through this time
Absolutely.
around. Hey, in our final
Absolutely.
minute, let me ask you this. In the news lately, the federal government helping out to police D.C. You live and work there part-time, and your staff. What has been your experience? Are there places that, or at times, I guess, that you want your staff to not be there or here at this certain time? What's your whole take on it?
We try to have a policy in the office where we always like to have people walking home together, especially those people that work on Capitol Hill. But listen, I have a colleague of mine, Ron Estes, who's out of Kansas, who literally just a couple months ago lost one of his interns because of some bullets that were being shot in a certain part of D.C. And we're seeing that uptick. I mean, even our office, three of my staffers, currently my chief of staff, my legislative director, and at the time the communications director, were just walking to lunch on it was a work week, and a man came up with him and tried to attack him with a knife. So, I worked in D.C. in the 1990s on the Hill, and I saw when crime was really bad, and it did improve. It was steadily improving, and then over the last few years, it's gone downhill. I know the vice president came out, I believe it was today or yesterday, and said that since the National Guard has been called up and they're patrolling the streets of D.C., that crime has gone down over 35%. I'm not sure where that number comes from, but I think that makes a lot of sense. It's a deterrent.
All right, Congressman Mike Carey from Ohio, thank you so much for being on again. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you.